Hello, I'm Doug. This is Scott and Brian with Brisco Hikes, and we're here for a hike in the Tuscarora State Forest in Pennsylvania.
We had originally intended on a 3-day, 2-night hike, but we've had to change of plans due to some map accuracy and unfortunately knee pain.
Hope you enjoy the hike.
Hey everyone, we're at the trailhead of the Tuscarora Trail in Pennsylvania. We're getting ready to start our hike.
So as we were walking through this part of the trail, we found that the trail started to go up, and we knew that it was going to be steep, so it goes up this way, and right about where I'm pointing there, it's going to go through those trees up there. Also, as we started the climb, we ran into this little guy, a baby garter snake, trying his best to get away from us. So the trail turned up and we went up the rocks. It was really a lot steeper than we anticipated, even looking at the map. And it's been rocks the whole way. We walked across the ridge for about 30 or 40 yards, and then the trail turned down, and we've been going down pretty steep the entire time. Now we're walking on the side of the mountain, and it's all rocks. So I'll turn the camera so you can see it. This has pretty much been the trail for us for the past 30 minutes or so.
Well, we made it down the steep part. It was rocky and kind of rough all the way. Our legs got a little shaky, and we are now on a flatter part, and we think we got about 3-4 miles to go before we get to camp. Hopefully that'll put us there around 4, maybe 5 o'clock, and call it a day. Well, we made it down from the parking area. We've come roughly 2+ miles, and where we're standing right now is actually at the intersection where we're going to start heading onto the Fowlers Hollow Trail. But also, if you look this way, this is where we'll be coming back in 2 days to head back up the way we came. So this is the connector of the loop that we're taking on this trip. We're still on the Tuscarora Trail, and we stopped here at this shelter back behind me. It's a nice shelter, looks like it sleeps 6 to 8 people. Got a fire pit, nice little chimney, has a bear pole over here for hanging your bags and food overnight. Nice picnic area. We stopped here to take a break, and right now Scott is taking a look at his foot. He's feeling a little bit of a hot spot on his toes, so he's treating that. Down the trail where we came from is a nice spring about 30 or 50 yards down that way. So once we finish up here, we're going to keep on going. We're going to run into the Fowlers Hollow Trail, and from there we'll find a place to camp for the night.
Okay, so we left where that shelter was that we showed you that we found. We actually think we're going to come back there tomorrow night on our way back around in the loop, as that's where we'll probably spend the night at. We are now on Fowlers Hollow Trail. Which, as you see, is like a road. It's very even, very flat. It's been pretty nice because we've had a lot of elevation change, mostly downhill, pretty steep. So we're going to walk this for a couple more miles and we'll find our campsite for the night. We lost audio on this part of the video. What Doug is explaining is that we figured out that we were off trail. We'd been hiking for actually a few miles when we figured it out. With Brian's knee pain and the poor signage that was out there marking the trails, we decided that we needed to turn back around, go the way that we knew, and head back to that shelter or find a campsite that was near some water. So this is what we're doing. We knew that we had at least 3 more miles if we wanted to go back to the shelter.
As we walk on Fowlers Hollow Trail, it's pretty flat, easy walking compared to what we had before. And one of the things we've noticed so far on this hike is that we haven't come across any established campsites. So we're not exactly sure what we're going to find up ahead. We know that we're heading towards a state park, and we believe that there may be some campsites up that way, but so far we haven't seen any. Good morning, everyone. It is day 2. We enjoyed our night last night. We had a good meal. We had a little fire in the fireplace right here at the shelter, and although we didn't stay in the shelter, we set up our tents around the shelter. It was a good night nonetheless.
Great night.
Now we're ready to kind of pack out. We're a little disappointed. I still have some knee pain this morning, so it has changed our plans. And so we're going to be hiking back out today instead of continuing the trip. But it's been a good trip so far nonetheless. All right, and we're ready to get going. Good morning, everyone. It's the morning of our 3rd day of our trip, and as you can see, things didn't go exactly as planned. About midway through the first day, I started experiencing knee pain on the left side of my left knee, mostly when heading downhill, and by the end of the day it was getting pretty severe. So we decided to turn around on our hike and head back to the shelter that we had found on the Tuscarora Trail to stay the night, giving my leg a chance to rest so we could hike out the next day.
Our original plans were to hike 2 nights on a loop using the Tuscarora Trail in the Hemlock Natural Area of the Tuscarora State Forest.
We had never been here before. We planned this trip online, so we really didn't know what to expect. The good news is that the access road that took us in was a very easy, smooth gravel road, led to a parking area that was labeled as the Hemlock Natural Area, so a nice place to park.
Yeah.
Signage that pointed right to the Tuscarora Trail, so we could find the trail very easily. Turns out the Tuscarora Trail is well maintained, has blue blazes, is easy to find and follow. The initial part of the trail took us over the top of a ridge and then on a steep descent down into the valley on the back side of the mountain. That was about 1,700 foot descent over about 2 miles, so it was pretty steep, and there were a lot of boulder scrambles and loose rocks and precarious footing.
Yeah, there was definitely some steep parts of that descent that made it feel steeper than what it probably actually was.
But otherwise, the trails were easy to follow, and the blazes were visible at all times.
We had a few surprises on the trail. We printed our map from alltrails.com, but as we were going down the Tuscarora Trail, as well marked and as well maintained as it was, We ran across a shelter that we had no indication that it was there. Now we know there's shelters on this trail, but we didn't know that it was there based on the map. It was a well-maintained shelter. It should have been highlighted on the map. It had a great water source there. It was a natural spring, probably the best water we had on the trail.
Yeah. Yeah, also, right down from the shelter, we came to that T intersection, which you saw earlier in the video. And we knew that we were coming, or we were looking for a T intersection, so we could turn off onto another trail. And it turned out that that wasn't the T intersection that we were looking for. Mm-hmm. We didn't anticipate that. That wasn't on the map either.
And a little further up the trail, very short distance up, we came to a two-way split in the trail that was not on the map.
Yeah.
That put us in a position where we had to stop. We were confused. We're consulting the map. We didn't know if we were before or after a certain split off on the map, and it raised some questions. A little further beyond that, we came to some signage that seemed to indicate where we would pick up the trail where we wanted to be, and that turned out that might have been the three-way intersection that we were expecting initially.
Yeah, previously.
Like a half a mile.
Right. But we were all out of sorts.
Right.
Because we're at another three-way intersection. That then turned into a forest road type of thing with like a two-wheel tire track rut for trucks to drive back. It was very easy, flat hiking. But after, what would you say, 2 miles?
2 miles.
We hiked about another 2 miles at that point, and we were thinking that we were going to be hiking along Fowlers Run Creek. But we didn't see the river. And at one point, I think Brian said, I think we're off the trail here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we pulled up all trails, and we were able to use the GPS locator. We luckily had cell signal right there at that one place. We were able to realize that when it GPS located us on the map, we were not on the place where we expected ourselves to be. We had gone off trail somehow, and that's when we decided to double back.
Yeah, and my knee was hurting pretty good at that point.
Yep.
And so we made the decision at that point. It didn't feel smart to continue with the loop that we were on, and to hike what we knew.
Yep. And
get back to the shelter and just rest and hike out the next day.
And we knew that we were coming up to a juncture where we were going to have to do another connect over onto another section of the trail that we weren't really sure how they were going to connect up.
Yeah.
So we knew that it would be easy to miss the trail at that point.
Yeah.
And we were having problems identifying the trails to begin with. So.
And I was hurting.
And you were hurting.
Made it for an easier decision.
Yeah. Yep. Sure did.
A couple of things I liked about this trail. I actually really liked the shelter. We went back to the shelter as we just mentioned. It had a good water source. It had a place to hang bear bags. It was relatively clean. It had a picnic table so we could sit down and have a table to eat our dinners on.
Yeah. Which was really helpful for me because I didn't want to sit on the ground.
Right. It was the Tuscarora Trail itself was, as Doug said, was very well maintained.
Yeah, it was.
Easy to follow. The blazes were clear, even though all the rest of the trail signs were not so clear. And I actually really liked the rock scramble heading back up. Mm-hmm. Even though it was difficult, it was exhilarating at the same time.
Yeah, I think for me, the area itself, it was beautiful. It was older forest. Mm-hmm. There were lots of big trees. It was steep. It was full of ferns. It was lush and green, and it just had a great. You just had a great sense of being in the wilderness.
Yeah,
that was probably my favorite part overall. Beautiful terrain, and Scott said the shelter was in great shape. We did come across another shelter further down towards the state park
on that forest road.
Yeah, and that shelter was not on the Tuscarora Trail, and it was not in good shape. So keep your eyes open for that if you're in that area. That looked like someone might have been living in it at one point, and there wasn't any chance we were going to stay there.
Yeah.
So we kind of hiked back out. But I really enjoyed just the overall lushness, all the ferns, all the greenery. of that whole area. All the rocks too. It really brought a nice ruggedness to the area.
I thought it was really interesting. There were a large number of mushrooms along the way, and sort of coincidentally, there's a particular edible mushroom that I enjoy, chicken of the woods, and we found 2 large patches of chicken of the woods mushrooms, which I was able to forage on the way out. I carried out, what, 25 pounds probably of mushrooms? A lot of mushrooms that I just cut them right off the log. I'm going to take them home, double check, make sure they're safe to eat, but that was a big prize for me.
Overall, it was a good hike. It's important to be flexible in your plans. Know your limits. If there's anybody in your party that's in pain, take that into consideration.
Communication is key on that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, don't hide it. If you're hurting, don't hide it from your hiking partners.
Yeah, don't be a hero.
So this is Scott, Brian, and Doug with Brisco Hikes. Hope you enjoyed the hike.